Welcome everybody to the National Open round number 2 recap. So this is a tournament that I'm playing here in Vegas. I would turn and show you the view. It's pretty nice, but I'm afraid that my entire laptop setup here would disintegrate. So it's the second round. I've got a point, and I'm playing against Timur Gareyev. Now, Timur Gareyev is an extremely strong Grandmaster, and he's 2,600 FIDE, so he's like about 2,700 USCF. Very eccentric chess player, like plays whatever he wants, whenever he wants. He's also the blindfold king, so it's literally like his nickname. He played 50 blindfold games at the same time, 58 to be exact, set a world record, also skydives. And basically my preparation was, first of all, not realizing my round started 30 minutes earlier than it did. I was preparing in my room, and then I realized my game has already started 2 minutes ago. So I showed up and I played c4, just like in round 1. Future opponents, I may or may not continue to play c4. I saw in the first recap, some of you were like, don't leak your prep. It doesn't really matter. It's just a move, and at the end of the day, we're going to have to play chess. And I was expecting g6, something with the modern, something, maybe e5. But he actually shocked me by playing this move. I was like, wow, symmetrical. Okay, symmetrical is very solid, copying me, and I play knight c3. And I was, expecting knight c6. I was expecting him to be the one to break the symmetry, and I was right, but he did it in a kind of a weird way. He played b6. There's nothing inherently wrong about this move. Basically, what black wants is that if you ever put the pawn on d4, black will take it, black will put the bishop on b7, and set up what's known as a hedgehog. So black will play e6, d6, b6, a6, bishop on b7, knight on d7. This is a very, very solid, but potentially also spiky and confrontational thing. Now, I didn't play d4 and take with the knight. I actually prepared that move by playing e3 because I wanted to have a pawn in the center when he took. So I wanted this. And actually, this structure, if he ever plays the move d5, we've now converted pawn structures into the Caro-Kann. So look, e4, c6, d4, d5. If I take, and play the Panov variation, and he goes here, look at the pawn structure. It's the exact same, right, if he ever plays d5. But the secret is he's going to delay d5. He's going to wait until d5 is playable. So he plays bishop b4. And the idea is that if I were to prompt him to capture me, he's going to take and damage my structure potentially, and then he'll castle and maybe d6, and again, play this hedgehog-style position. Because again, the most flexible thing about his position is he hasn't moved his pawn. In the Caro-Kann, he's already got a pawn on d5, but here he can at least play d6. So I thought here for a little bit. Obviously, I want to just ignore this bishop and maybe play bishop d3, and I figured that bishop d3 is just the way to go. It's probably the most theoretical move. Maybe bishop b7, maybe we both castle. He will at some point decide whether to take or retreat, and we play some chess. But then I started getting a little bit infatuated with this idea to target his bishop, but not with my pawn. With a pawn is a waste of time, okay? Because this bishop actually is going to go here anyway. So, but I thought I was a genius, and I was like, look at me being so exotic. Queen b3. He's got to take, and I'm going to take with my queen. I'm not going to damage my structure. I have the two bishops. I'm so smart. And a move which I thought he couldn't play, he actually played. So here I was like, he has to take. I mean, if he plays a5... this weakening of the pawn structure, this b5, right? He overextended his pawn by 2 squares. I was like, he's not going to play that. And he can't play knight c6 either. He can't go here because I go d5. This doesn't make any sense for him. He can't do this. Except for the fact that he can. And I actually just, in my very brief calculation, missed the fact that after takes, right? Like, I thought he had to go here because if he moves his knight, he loses his bishop. I completely forgot that after check, this is just protected. And actually, he's attacking me. I just completely forgot. Like, I was like, wow, I've just queen e7. What am I doing? So he played knight c6, and then I went for a3 anyway, and I took with my queen, and he castled. And here I spent, again, like maybe about 8 to 10 minutes, because I need a game plan. I mean, it's very simple, do I play bishop d3 and castle? Do I take space on the queen side and put my bishop behind the queen? But more importantly, I need to ask myself, what does he want? He wants he wants two things. Number one, I thought he would go here, attack my queen, and play this pawn to f5. Take space, lock the knight into the center, can't complain about that. And so, first thing that came to mind was just developing with bishop d3. That's what I did. But his second plan is the move that he's about to play. He is going to target my queen and my pawn. He's going to play bishop to b7. He's going to put his rook behind his knight. He's going to move his knight and target my pawn. And he will target it with breaks like this, or flanking his knight out to a5, opening up his bishop, And really, his whole position just depends on my coordination. Because I want to achieve a few things. I want to castle, and I want to safeguard my queenside and get out of the pin. But he's a move ahead of me. And this all comes back to this queen b3 idea not being potentially the most precise thing. So he plays bishop b7. And here, to prevent the move knight to a5, in conjunction with rook c8, I played b4. So I went for the expansion plan on the queen side. And so here, if he was going to play rook c8, which is what I expected, I was going to decide whether I would castle or play bishop b2 and get out of the pin, or maybe be aggressive with bishop g5. I had another cool idea, which was this move, to like plant in my bishop there. The problem is, he would just do this. So he would just defend that, and I would not get my bishop there, and all of a sudden my center is a big target. I'm a move or two behind from having the perfect position, but that's chess, sadly. But instead, he actually surprised me. He didn't play rook c8, he played knight e7 right away, and I was actually thinking this was not the most accurate move. Turns out it was, because he's a GM and I'm an idiot. But I was like, knight e7, why did he do that right away? Now I have bishop to g5. And I had this big brain idea here. I was like, man, I'm really threatening to damage his structure, and then I'm going to route my queen over to h6, and maybe create some attack on his weak pawns. I've got such a nice position, plus this plan unpins him, right? Me unpins my queen, so I don't have to worry. My bishop is so strong. Oh, I'm so happy. And then I played bishop g5, and he vanished. Like, he didn't, it's not that I played bishop g5, and then he left. He got up from the board before I played the move bishop g5, and I played bishop g5, and he was gone for like 30 minutes. Like, no joke. I don't know. Maybe he went to take a power nap. Maybe he went for a quick workout. You know, it's actually kind of funny. When lower-rated players, and by lower-rated, I mean, when I say that, I mean in comparison to myself as a tournament player. So 22, 2100. I know you guys are going to comment like, oh, me, a 600 player. So lower-rated players, like if a 21, 2200 left for 30 minutes, like I would go investigate. You know, I'd be like, are they in the toilet? Like looking at the, you know, when a GM leaves, I'm like, these GM, he's probably like schmoozing and getting some new students. It's like very different. You know, the cheating is rampant, so it's always something on your mind particularly when you're playing down, but not when you're playing a GM. I mean, so I'm sitting there like, where is this dude? I wouldn't be against if he just didn't come back. He just like left, and I won the game. But he comes back, sadly, and he plays the move rook c8. And this was just a shock to me. I was like, wait a second, he's just not doing anything about this? Like, okay, takes. And then it hit me. Here is where it hit me. I could not, for the life of me, see a way that he was going to prevent me from getting this attack. So I calculated queen to d2, knight to g6, and I was going to play h4, h5. And I was like, dude, he's in trouble. Like, he might have to take my knight just to remove an attacker from the, you know, from the game, and maybe play king h8 and rook to g8. And I was like, it's going to be bishop versus knight, like very imbalanced pawn structure. Wow, I really like my position. I mean, I'm just queen d2, queen h6. And then it hit me. He's got the most obscure counterplay. And again, if you're like a title player, maybe this is like supernatural. His counterplay revolves around the absence of my dark squared bishop, which I just traded for his knight. And it's got to do with one square. And that square is f4. And I am not in time to defend this square sufficiently. Together with knight g6, he is going to play this move queen c7. I thought that he was going to play knight g6, f5, queen f6. In my mind, that was how he was going to finish his development. His queen was going to come out that way, pressure my center and this diagonal. And then I realized that when I play the move queen d2 in this position, he's going to play here and here. And I have no way of stopping his knight. Because if I play the move g3, I remove the defender of my knight, and I lose my knight for free. And all of a sudden, I'm like, damn, I really messed up here. But then I thought I was a genius. And I was like, what if I flip my move order and begin with h4? Because now he can't go here, because I'll play h5. And if knight f4, I can always just back up. I mean, I have ways to like make this work. Of course, he played queen c7, anticipating this whole plan. And by the way, just for the record, the computer just wants me to play bishop to e2. And what that move does is guards my knight with my queen. My bishop stays guarding this, and computer just thinks that this is equal. It just thinks it's an equal position. Black has some fancy moves, but I can just, you know. But I was thinking, you know, wait a second. He doesn't see something that I see. I'm so smart. Queen c7, queen d2, knight g6. And again, even here, it's not too late for me to bail out. I can play rook to h3, which is an obscure move, but here's my idea. I anticipate this. I give him a check. He moves his king. And now my bishop is a target, and probably my best move is either to move my bishop back or just defend this. Just preemptively anticipate this will be weak, so bring my rook. And it's a weird position. And I actually saw this in my head, and I was like, yeah, this is fine, but I have no moves now. I get a position that's fine, and he plays one move, and now he's going to get my rook out, then he's going to get my pawn out or my bishop out, and then he'll break in the center, and I'm going to lose. And I'm like, you know what? That doesn't look very good. And my laptop fan just turned on. You might hear it. Although in the last recap, you couldn't hear it at all. And then here, folks, I thought that this is where I really thought this was my moment. Queen to h6, queen to f4. And see, this is the whole point. My counterplay is, his counterplay is just in time. And this is where I thought I was really smart. Rather than taking and getting this really uncomfortable position, I just thought I was going to lose this endgame. I was like, if we get this position, I'm going to lose. My pawns are terrible. I'm overextended. Everything is bad. So I said, if I'm going to lose, I'm going to go out with a bang, knight g5. And the point is, mate is threatened. So he has to take, and now mate is threatened again. And in my mind, I was like, the only way he can stop this, and by the way, he has no checks on me, which makes this attack possible, he's got to move his rook. And it depends where he moves it. And he played the best one, and I didn't fully realize just how strong his move was. I thought there made no difference, and I was just going to attack him. There is a huge difference. The huge difference has to do with the fact that this is protected. And if I ever want to take and then take, you see? Take the knight and then take the pawn. Yeah, the rook guards it now. Even if it's super passive. And here again, I had my supercomputer brain on. I was like, I'm going to get this position and then I'll figure it out. And the problem is that I have a lot of different ideas here. If I just go headhunting for the king, look what happens. He escapes. And he saw this. And I saw this. We both saw this. And my queen's hanging, and this is all bad news. So I was like, okay, well, obviously I have to start with c5 so that his king cannot escape. The problem is that here, he plays check, and I can't do anything. If I go here, he takes my pawn and hunts me down. And if I go here, he has to find the right check, and he would have. He doesn't take my rook because it's guarded, but he plays this. And this is a problem. Because now anywhere I move my king, he will probably just take my rook, take my pawn, take everything I own, and not get checkmated. So c5 right away doesn't work. And then my other idea, which I thought it was really smart to play rook h4, and I just totally forgot he can go here. From a distance, not in this position. In this position, I was like, oh yeah. From a distance, I forgot that when he took on g6, if you go all the way like back here, I forgot that when I end up taking on g6 in the future, he will have no pawn on f7. And when we got there to this position, I was like, uh-oh, I can't play rook h4 because queen f7 and there's nothing I can do. So I did this, giving him this, playing rook d1. He still needs to be precise. He's a GM, so for him it's easy. But you got to be really precise here. Just as an example, like if you play queen e4 check, you're like, I got to trade the queens. Actually, you're in like, you're barely winning here. It's like very tricky position. I play rook h4, rook d4, like, you have a bishop, but I have two pawns. Also, I have a tactic, rook takes d7, and rook h8. Now I have 3 pawns for the bishop, so I'm going to try to hold the endgame. But he took on d4, and then he went back. And again, here I still thought I had some chances. I was like, you know, I'm going to go queen d6, not there, queen d6, rook h7. But he's GM, and he played a move, which again, I thought was just completely impossible. I thought he could not play this move. That his position was not equipped to just play a greedy bishop takes pawn, but I realized the problem. It has less to do with the fact that my rook is hanging, and everything to do with the fact that now he can give me this check, and I have to go to the middle. You see, folks, in this position after queen d3, if he gives me this check, I hide, and his king is still weaker than my king. But by playing bishop takes g2, I realized the point. The point is this. And anywhere I move my king, I have to go toward the middle, or trade queens, which I don't want to do because now he has more than enough pawns. So I played this. He went here and I played this. And I was like, he can't check me. If he checks me on c3, I have rook d2, and I'll probably survive. I'll have rook d2, I'll survive, and I can try to create counterplay. And I played rook h6. He thought for a while. We both had pretty low time here, so I was getting kind of my hopes up. And then he played rook f8, giving me the pawn, but having all this activity. And here I also calculated something pretty cool. If he plays rook, if he plays rook c4, I have a very cool queen sacrifice, which doesn't actually save the game at all, but maybe scares him here. And then I take his rook, and then I come back and I take his his queen, and then I take his pawn. And I have some small hope of drawing this, and it's because the A pawn is a wrong color of the bishop. So I'm thinking far down the line here. It's good to have this knowledge that if I get his B pawn off the board and his rook, it doesn't matter if he has bishop and A, because it's the wrong color corner. That's just a draw. So I'm like, all right, maybe I'll get down to that. Except, of course, that was not meant to be. I played rook h6, he played rook f8, and low time on the clock, but already a very bad position. I played this move, and I totally hallucinated that after bishop f3, I can play rook d4. Like, in my mind, I was like, oh, I'm so smart, I'm gonna go rook d4, and he can't take me because I'm gonna do nothing. Nothing at all. Like, in my mind, I was like, he can't take my rook. And then I got here, and I was like, oh, I have a big attack. Oh, I have no moves. Everything is covered. I had low time, but it doesn't even matter. After bishop f3, I played rook c1, he went here, and here I resigned because queens are getting traded, and then he will bring his king, and while I am able to win maybe one of the pawns, this is just not enough. I mean, rook h8 is coming, this bishop is the beacon of hope, locking in my king, and the game is over. So he played queen e5 check. I said, let's not prolong this, and I resigned the game. For me, this game was interesting. The way I summarized this game was it was a unique opening. I've never seen kind of that position in the opening before. I had a choice to make all the way back on move 7. You know, do I just play normal bishop d3 and castle, or do I kind of get exotic with my queen b3? And the move that he played, I just thought was not possible. So he equalized very quickly, because the whole point of the opening is not to win the game, it's to get an advantage. And I lost all hopes of getting an advantage once I wasted time getting this bishop. You see, even though I didn't damage my pawn structure, I put my queen in an awkward spot where now he has play throughout the rest of the game, and I don't get my development fast enough. So I should have just trusted my gut and played bishop to d3. And because I was always a step behind, to offset this, I decided to go for some attack, because I thought it doesn't matter that I'm a step behind, I'll be attacking. But I completely misevaluated this position, missed his entire bit of counterplay with the f4 square, which is kind of instructive how one square shuts down my entire attack. Either his knight gets there or his queen gets there, as it did in the game. His queen gets there just in time to trade queens with me, and this is just not an attack at all. He's just in time to chip everything away here. It was kind of a downward spiral, not gonna lie. It was a game I'm very much familiar with. You play a GM, they get you kind of in an obscure opening pretty quickly, and normally I'm pretty happy with that, but one bad decision with queen b3, which I actually thought was a good decision, led to another bad decision, to not just bishop d3 and try to be solid. I tried to go for an attack, and yeah. It's actually kind of interesting. When you sit back down here, it's the sobering reality of just, I got outplayed from start to finish. Like, this guy is just a better player than me. So for next game, I am going to know what to do against b6 setups a little bit more. I'm going to study this. This is the way you learn from games like this. I'm going to study and be a bit more familiar with these b6 positions. Maybe welcome a hedgehog structure with open arms. I'm not super experienced in those. Or at least, if I'm going to play for this, just play bishop d3 and castle. And don't worry about trying to not damage your structure. It's actually going to be okay to get a position like this if you know how to deal with it. And that concludes the second round, folks. There are 2 games every single day. A lot of people are showing up here. If you've said hello to me, if you're part of like the 10 to 15 people who have said hello, hi. And thank you for, making this fun and exciting. I think the organizer wants to broadcast all my games, so whether I'm behind the stage, on the ropes, board 3 or not, I will be having my games broadcasted. So, yeah, in the third round, I'm going to have to play probably about a master level player, 22, 2300. I'll have the black pieces because I just had 2 games with white, which is pretty rare. That's very rare in these tournaments, and I'm just going to have to keep on fighting. So, I just finished my game, sat down and made a recap for 20 minutes. I will see you in round number 3, folks. Peace out. Get out of here.